Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're doing the next part for What If Chi-Chi Became a Saiyan. Now last time I left off with the Z-Fighters heading off towards Frieza to take him down, with the group being ready to fight Frieza. After all, Vegeta is now under the impression that they are far above Frieza, meaning that this fight shouldn't be any issue. Now, the moment the ship touches down on Frieza's planet, the attack begins, with Goku explaining before the ship ever opens the doors that murdering will not be allowed, so avoid it as much as possible. These guys are just scared of Frieza. With everyone understanding this, well, everyone other than Vegeta, who isn't following the instructions so well. Vegeta not really following the rules, he begins to wipe out everyone he sees, eventually coming across Zarbon, Dodoria and Q, with him wiping them out, explaining how this is for every time they've put him below them. The prince having a good laugh about this, enjoying himself, where on the other side of the story we see the Z-Fighters taking care of any 3 to 4 soldiers they can, only knocking them out or injuring them to the point where they don't really want to fight and run away, with the group being pretty happy about this. Now, once Goku finally gets a track of Frieza's energy, when the battle calms down a little bit, he is fairly confident that everyone here can beat him. The humans might struggle a little bit, but other than that, they are pretty much fine. The Saiyans are all incredibly strong, and Piccolo is strong enough to deal with him if he was twice as strong, so this is all good. Now, after a while, they do take down a large amount of Frieza's henchmen. Now, the ones that are killed were killed by Vegeta, and most of them have run away. This leaves the Z-Fighters and Frieza, with Frieza actually coming out of his pod, coming to check on what's been happening. After all, he lost contact with Zarbon, Dodoria and Q earlier, so he's pretty interested. Now, when he comes out and sees Vegeta's there, pretty much destroying his planet, he starts asking some questions, with Vegeta explaining how this is his revenge. It's time for the top dog, the Saiyans, to come out on top. With Frieza being pretty amused by this, he begins to check his power, and he sees Vegeta's power maxes out at about 100,000. Vegeta obviously being quite heavily suppressed here, but it is amusing to Frieza that he thought this would be enough. And after all, now everyone has a good sense of how strong Frieza is, and they all begin to sort of sit down, a bit of a distance away from the battle, just getting ready to jump in just in case by some miracle Frieza has some trick up his sleeve. With the whole Sun family being really upset at how weak Frieza is compared to them, but they are happy this means they have gotten stronger than Vegeta ever thought these low-class warriors or the fake Saiyan could be. So, you know, this is all well and good. Now, Frieza and Vegeta have a bit of dialogue between one another, and Vegeta soon gets bored of this, explaining how he's looking forward to the killing Frieza, with Lord Frieza mocking Vegeta, explaining how he will die, but before Frieza can even begin to brag at how strong he is, Frieza is soon met by Vegeta being right up in his face, and having his fist right in front of Frieza's gut. Frieza's scouter's beeping louder and louder, and Frieza's reading out numbers that are soon shooting up, and his sweat begins to drop the moment it hits its final readout, being 8 mil. Frieza, before his body even realises, is sent flying backwards. Vegeta only put a swift punch into Frieza's stomach, but it was enough to send the Emperor miles back. But while he's falling backwards, Vegeta shows up behind Frieza, grabbing him by his tail and swinging him down straight into the ground, with Vegeta not finishing his assault on Frieza just yet. Vegeta flies downwards, slamming his feet straight into Frieza's gut, making the tyrant cough up blood. Vegeta not quite done yet, he turns his body looking at Frieza's head. With Frieza trying to understand what's happening, he soon gets a quick kick to the face, sending Frieza once again flying away from the prince and into a building. Now, Vegeta is pretty bored of this, and he screams out to Frieza, who can hardly even stand right now, that this was a waste of time. I should have just blown up the planet, probably would have killed you as well. Explaining how it's funny how Frieza was scared of us, the weak monkey, and now is dead by me. before charging up a massive ki wave destroying Frieza. Vegeta is upset he didn't get a fight out of this. However, he's happy he doesn't really know that Frieza destroyed Planet Vegeta, but he's happy he got his own back on Frieza. He was a bit of a dick. And after this, Vegeta sort of turns around, heading back towards the group, with everyone there already heading back into the ship. Surprised at how well this whole thing went. The group also being quite impressed with how well Vegeta did. After all, he only killed a few people. That's an improvement. But yeah, they are happy with how the battle went. And even though it wasn't so much a battle, it was more of a beatdown, it still went the best way it possibly could have. With everyone heading back into the ship and everything being pretty calm, they train a little bit lightly on their way back to Earth, but nothing too noticeable. But the one thing that is worthwhile is Vegeta seems to be a much different person on the trip back. He has a different attitude about him. He almost seems happy. After all, he just killed the person who ruled over him for years. With the prince being in a much better mood than ever before, they all spend a bit of time together. Now, once arriving back on Earth after a week of travelling, the group celebrate a little bit, before everyone starts to head their separate ways again. With Vegeta staying at Capsule Corp for the next year and 6 months, and to be honest, the next year and 6 months go quite smoothly. The likes of Trunks and Goten being born during this time, with Trunks still being older by only a few months, but it's enough of a difference that it's still a bit noticeable. And during this time, everyone continues to train. It's just quite a nice, happy time. There's only a few things I really feel like mentioning during this time, and I'll get into this quickly now. Now, like I mentioned, Trunks was born during this time, which means Bulma and Vegeta have hooked up. And when Vegeta started to... they didn't get married, nor did they really date, but once they started to shack up a little bit, Vegeta tried to convince Bulma to become a Saiyan, much like Goku's woman. But Bulma was very much against the idea. She doesn't really like fighting, and she's quite happy with herself. And this has led to Trunks being the only living hybrid Saiyan at the moment, which means the potential of hybrid Saiyans is unknown. They're sort of a mystery at the moment, but it will be interesting to see how Trunks will handle being the only hybrid Saiyan for this point in time. And Goten is obviously born a full Saiyan, with him being a lot more like his father than most people would realise. Even though in canon they look very similar and Goten sort of has his father's personality, Goten turns out much more like Goku here. And it's much like what happened with Gohan in this What If, where he is still pretty much mostly Saiyan. He still has his desire to, be sort of smart and have somewhat of a scholarship, but his mother hasn't been ramming it down his throat most of his life. In fact, he's probably spent more time training than he has done anything else. He'll probably revise every now and again, but for the most part, he is just a Saiyan. There is a small detail I want to cover, which is just something minor. Like I said, the Sun family do continue to train, but another thing that there is here is the fact that Bulma and Chi-Chi are much closer friends here. So Bulma would often visit the Sun family, with Vegeta coming every now and again as well to train, but that's not what I want to talk about. Bulma would come and visit, and when she first fell pregnant, she was excited and was also complaining to Chi-Chi how Vegeta wanted her to become a Saiyan, going on to explain how she's happy as a human and would never change anything. She loves her life like it is, not really thinking too much into it. And to be honest, there's a bit of a weird silence between Bulma and Chi-Chi right now. But this is soon broken by a very serious Bulma asking Chi-Chi if she would ever want to become human again. After all, the whole reason she became a Saiyan was sort of an accident, and she's changed a lot about herself because of it. She isn't the same person. Well, she is, but there's different things about her. With her pointing out some things Saiyans obviously do, like the thrill for combat, the desire to become stronger, all the training she does, the amount of food she eats. Bulma got broke last time she celebrated, and that's because there was 4 Saiyans there, she just wasn't quite ready for it. But it's all meant in a very serious way. Keep in mind, Chi-Chi just wanted to fix her relationship, and Bulma realises that the relationship has been mended, and she now understands Goku, so everything can go back to how it was. After all, at this point it feels like Chi-Chi might be denying her, heritage, but Chi-Chi speaks up. She explains very seriously how she had thought about it briefly not long after the battle with Frieza. After all, like Bulma said, she had fixed the relationship between herself and her husband, and they're much closer than she ever could have hoped to be. And she also is a much happier person. But if she was to make that wish, she would be rejecting her family. Goku and Gohan are now full-blown Saiyans. Gohan isn't anything like the kid she ever expected she would have. And to be honest, she loves it. She remembers looking out of her window the day she thought that she might want to become human again, and realised that if she was to wish to become how she was before, all of the great things her and her family do together might stop. The whole Sun family do everything together, and sometimes they're even joined by the likes of Piccolo, who she likes now, and sort of views as a second son. It's really weird, but her family just feels a lot closer, and she's happy with it. She has a perfect family, and yes, they might all be aliens, but they are happy with one another. They spend all of their free time together, and Chi-Chi got a loving family, something she always wanted. She got a son who might become a scholar, but also might follow her husband's steps and become a martial artist, and she's perfectly fine with this. Gohan is still studying, so he has options here. And she's also has a much more amazing relationship with her husband, who will go out of his way to make sure he does a little bit of work every now and again, as long as they can train later on. Chi-Chi's wish has led to the Sun family living and leading a great life, so why would she stop this? Hearing this, Bulma finally lets out a deep breath. Bulma had worried about her friends a lot after the wish was made. She has worried about her ever since, not really realising that Chi-Chi's wish had led her to lead a much more happy and fulfilling life. Chi-Chi may not be completely the same, and there may be some minor changes, but if Chi-Chi is happy with her life, Bulma has no right to change it. And to some degree she's jealous of how close the whole Sun family is. After all, like Chi-Chi said, they do everything together, and it's kind of amazing to see how the family is so close. With this being before Goten was conceived, and the family was about to get bigger. So Bulma finally explains to Chi-Chi that she had worried, and is happy that she's good. And the two sort of laugh it off, and life goes back to normal. Bulma still came to visit every now and again, with Vegeta starting to come more and more with her, with the Sun family and the Briefs family being a little bit closer. But I want to jump forward to the present day, where we see the Sun family training, with Piccolo. Now, like I said, Piccolo had basically become a new member of the family, sort of being like a brother to Gohan. And I think this dynamic would work. The whole family spends more time here training. Piccolo would spend a lot of time helping Goku farming. After all, he's a Namekian, and even though he doesn't know that Namekians farm like they do, he would still understand it in a really weird way, and would help Goku on the farm every now and again, and they would make a training session out of it. And he would also make sure that Gohan would continue training, with the two having a brother-like bond, but also being a master and student in the sense. But Piccolo is also ready to start training up Goten whenever he can start training, being ready to deal with another Sun brat. But the family do train every day. But one day while they're training, they sense something weird, something stupidly strange. And before even really talking about it, Chi-Chi runs into the house, grabs the baby Goten, and everyone flies off, heading towards this energy, which is also coming towards them now, and it's coming to them very fast. Now, of course, the other Z-Fighters can sense the energy, and they also find it really weird. And they too are beginning to head towards it. However, the Sun family and Piccolo run into the source first, and the moment they lay their eyes on it, everyone's sort of shocked. However, they don't really have any time to put up a fight or defend themselves because the person starts running at them, but not in an aggressive way. Immediately, this person runs straight towards Goku and Gohan, hugging them, taking them to the ground while crying out, burying herself in Gohan and Goku's shoulders, which just leaves the Sun family really confused. They are not sure what to do, but they just sit there. After all, if that person is who they just saw it was, they need some answers, and they might need this right now. Now, Chi-Chi's probably the most confused right now. However, she stays quiet, trying to figure out what's happening, while also making sure Goten is okay from the fast flight they just took. Now, everyone stays quiet, with the stranger staying in Goku and Gohan's arms for a while longer until everyone else shows up, with the rest of the team also being very quiet. But Vegeta finally breaks the silence, asking why is there two of them, with the woman thanking Goku and Gohan for letting her get that out, before looking really serious, and introduces herself as Chi-Chi. With everyone trying to piece together what is happening, as there are two Chi-Chis, but the one that was just crying looks a bit different. She seems a bit older. They can't really figure it out, but they do notice a slight scar on her cheek. The Chi-Chi who just was crying goes on to explain how she's from the future, and she's here to warn the group about an upcoming threat, explaining everything about the androids, but I'm going to give some more detail here. You see, when the androids initially attacked, Goku obviously still had died from the heart virus, and the only two to come out of the encounter alive was the likes of both Gohan and herself. They had just been left living, only just, but they left Chi-Chi with a scar on her cheek. Gohan and Chi-Chi were both nearly dead. Luckily, Bulma had found them and nursed them back up to full health. And after the attack on the androids, they slowly started destroying the world, with Gohan and herself trying to defend it and trying to stop them multiple times, but every time they fail, and it felt like they were getting nowhere. When the likes of Trunks and Goten became of age, they both started training, trying to help them, tried to help them make the gap between them a bit smaller, and for a little while it worked. However, even though there is a slight, advantage with the numbers, they still can't win. And one time they had a battle which left Chi-Chi bedridden, with the kids being able to fight much sooner than she was. And when the androids attacked, they all headed off to try and stop them, with Chi-Chi being able to barely stand. All she could do was stay in her bed and sense out the battle. But when she felt Gohan's power dropping rapidly, she just pushed through it. She had one final senzu bean on her, which she only ever wanted to use in an emergency, but this time she felt like it was needed. Rapidly she flew towards her family, trying to get there as fast as she could, but the moment she arrived, she saw something she never wanted to see again. She saw the sight of her youngest son, Goten, holding his brother Gohan in his arms. Gohan was motionless. Gohan's body was limp. Trunks was in the distance, crying. But Goten looked different. Goten's hair had changed. Goten's power had increased. But in this moment, Chi-Chi took no note of it. All she saw was the sight of her dead son. And she snapped. She screamed out with every ounce of rage she had. She screamed to the point where the buildings around her were crumbling, and with her power slowly increasing, the ground around them began to shake, snapping Goten out of his crying state and catching the attention of Trunks. Her body was flowing with energy. She was ready to defend her family, but once finally calming down and having achieved the form, she realised that both Goten and Trunks had passed out. Both had taken a lot of damage, and both were barely even able to stay conscious. Chi-Chi grabbed her son, grabbed Trunks, and picked up her oldest body and began to fly them back towards Capsule Corp, where Bulma gave them medical attention, and also the two mourned for the loss of Gohan. Once both kids had fully healed, Chi-Chi was training with Goten to re-unlock the form that they both had tapped into. Chi-Chi managed to unlock it with a bit of struggle, but Goten was hit by a wall. He couldn't seem to reactivate the rage he had. He's not able to pull on it like his mother was, but after a few months of trying, he does unlock it himself. Trunks had also been trying to self-teach him it, and for the most part he is doing pretty well, but he can't seem to get the final edge to achieve it. However, once both surviving Sun family members achieved it, they headed off to avenge their brother and son. However, much like before, they failed. They had gone down a fighter, and even though the increase in power from this form was incredible, it wasn't enough to surpass them. And after this is done, they decide going to the past is the best option, with Chi-Chi choosing to go back, to show off the form which she had better control of, and also give them some pointers on how to achieve it. And after hearing all of this, the Z-Fighters are finally caught up, but they're also scared, and they need to know more. But with Chi-Chi already having explained pretty much everything, Vegeta finally asks a question. Interested in this form, he asked if Chi-Chi could show it off, with future Chi-Chi powering up into Super Saiyan, and Vegeta, knowing what this is, explains it and gives everyone there a bit of detail, filling them in on the history. Chi-Chi finally having a name for the form she had been using, thanks Vegeta, and explains to him how Bulma and Trunks have been safe. With him still being at the point where he doesn't care too much, he sort of just scoffs it off. However, in his heart he was happy to hear his family was alive. Chi-Chi then looks over to her husband, who's shocked by his wife's power. She explains how maybe if you were in the fight we would have won, and that's what I'm here for. Before handing over the heart medicine to Goku, she goes over to explain everything to her past self, with Chi-Chi of the past understanding, and future Chi-Chi being happy that she understood what was going on. Future Chi-Chi then goes on to explain how she'll be heading back to the future now, but she'll be coming back in 3 years to help them, but this time she'll be bringing the reinforcements of Goten and Trunks. And as she leaves, she gives her family one more quick hug, with past Chi-Chi finding this a bit weird, but understanding it. And like this, she heads back to the future, with everyone explaining how they're going to be training, and Vegeta heading off to go and unlock the Super Saiyan form. They all begin to train, every Saiyan trying to achieve the Super Saiyan form. But this is where I'm leaving this part. It's been going on for 23 minutes, and I haven't covered too much. I just wanted to set up the next part, and I hope everyone's okay with this. I hope everyone likes this part, and I wanted to make sure that future Chi-Chi was the one who came back. I sort of knew this from the moment I started this What If. I just, thought it would be quite emotional. I didn't know how I was going to do it, and I hope it came off as quite nice to everyone. But for the most part, I hope you all have a great day or a good night, and I'll see you next time.